Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate having the opportunity to be back here at the Mondial de l'Auto and to share my thoughts on how to manage a global company in a fragmented world. 4 years have gone since the last motor show here in Paris. In the meantime, our industry and frankly our world underwent historic changes. And of course, we announced Stellantis, birthed in January 2021, building a new company during a once-in-a-century pandemic, a war, and a shocking economic contraction has given us unprecedented challenges. On top, we continue to prioritize the fight against climate change while preserving the citizens' right to freedom of mobility. Even with all this, we are running the race and winning in the global market. We have demonstrated the ability to boost our business in the face of challenging conditions. There is no magic and, though. But I believe that there are some crucial ingredients that give us the ability to thrive in this fragmented reality. I'd like to share my thoughts on those now and give everyone here a look to our future. First, we have the soul of a startup and the size of a powerhouse. We combine the strength of our 14 iconic brands and our 2 mobility companies with our manufacturing capacity in 30 countries and our commercial opportunities in 130 markets. Add together our entrepreneurial spirit, and we can truly leverage our XXL size. We purposely built our governance to maximize our agility. We execute with focus and a sense of frugality. Everybody knows where and how decisions are discussed, and they are taken in very short loops. Second, our synergies are transforming us into a vertically integrated, sustainable mobility tech company that has more control over costs and more control on technology. Third, we work to render the status quo obsolete. At Stellantis, breakthrough ideas are the result of a healthy internal debate made by passionate, engaged, and straightforward people that have a fighting spirit to race ahead. Finally, we have a well-balanced turnover between the US with 49% and Europe with 36%. We are closely watching the conditions in our other regions to create what would become our third engine, able to contribute more than 25% of the revenue. This will help de-risk us from regional cycles. The combination of mindset, skills, and scale drive us to achieve great financial results in our first 18 months. In the first half of 2022, we posted record numbers with a leading 14.1% of adjusted operating income margin. We have laid a strong economic foundation, shielded by a break-even point at 40% of revenues. Now we are speeding forward to compete in a world where automakers are facing immense structural changes. Technology is driving us to new sustainable horizons as investments are transforming and sustainability is top priority. In my opinion, the magnitude of this change requires an all-for-one strategy to act like one operation, involving everybody who is contributing to today's profitability. That's why we have no intention to spin off our fast-growing EV and software units. The logic of dividing up activities is, for me, more a risk than an opportunity in an environment where huge investments are at stake and access to capital will be limited. No gimmick. We are one company, not splitting into old co and new co. As we quickly and proactively shift to a customer-first driven company, we will reskill and upskill our people. Transformation needs the scale and the diversity of our teams. With our global footprint, we can perform locally, anticipate our customer needs globally, and always stay in compliance with the various regulations. So, our approach, especially in our fragmented world, is global business strategy. We have strong roots here in France, in Italy, and in the United States. We are proud of them as we are building our future on our origins. We respect each one of those histories. And of course, Stellantis has a great legacy here in France. A legacy that will also lead us into a stronger future. We are the undisputed leader in the French auto industry, with legendary brands, diverse portfolio, and strong engineering and industrial presence. We are proudly producing Peugeot, Citroën, DS, Opel, Fiat, and Vauxhall models in our 12 assembly and component plants. We are the top vehicle manufacturer in France, with more than 600,000 cars produced last year. And we are the French electrification leader with 32.2% of passenger cars market share in the first half of 2022. We are even stronger in the light commercial vehicle segment with 44.7% of market share. With yesterday's announcement of 3 additional Peugeot electric models to be produced in our Mulhouse facility, Stellantis reaffirms its unquestionable industrial and commercial leadership here in France. We will total 12 electric models by 2025, built with great pride and passion by our employees spread across 7 French regions. Together with ACC in Douvrin, we are constructing the first gigafactory in the country, due to have 40 gigawatt-hour per year. This will strengthen the value chain in France, supported by French technology developed in Bruges, close to Bordeaux. All to power the next generation of our vehicles. And I'm also proud that we are innovating more than our competitors. We hold the top spot for OEM patents in France with 1,035 patents last year. We are also investing in our component plants to anticipate the necessary transition through the co-construction process with our union partners. Securing the continuity of their activity and supporting our employees through upskilling programs. These are large transformational shifts for our company and the country alike. As happened in the past, Stellantis will keep balancing the demands of national development with a responsible, profitable business. Because in an industry that's defined by mobility, no company can afford to stay still. We never take for granted the risk of disappearing in the face of new entrants to the European market. Whatever comes next, it's likely to follow an unpredictable script. As far out as we can see right now, the world's fragmentation is becoming an ever-increasing threat. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, the conflict has changed the world, even more from a geopolitical risk and the economy to energy, trade, and inflation. Today, we operate in a shaky reality, an age of constant crisis. Urgent issues shove aside the important ones. In ordinary times, it would be hard to cope with raw material scarcity, semiconductor shortage, and skyrocketing energy bills. It's much harder today among rising interest rates, financial instability facing countries, and a European car market expected to be much lower than the pre-COVID years. This is why our Dare Forward 2030 strategic plan is our lighthouse. The plan increases Stellantis' resilience to global shocks and gives us a competitive advantage to strengthen our business ambition. I will share a few quick highlights. We have an aggressive electrification that is progressing at full speed, thanks to an engineering firepower that few of our rivals have. Our all-new fully electric Jeep Avenger is the first ever BEV for the brand and debuts here in Paris. It is evidence of our 75 BEVs to be launched out of our 4 Stellar platforms. We are also in the front-runner position in hydrogen technology, with an LCV already available for Peugeot, Citroën, and Opel customers. It's a breakthrough innovation that represents one of the crucial alternatives to fossil fuels. We have a strengthened battery ecosystem that aims to produce the most innovative and sustainable batteries on the market, with a huge potential in terms of clean mobility, energy efficiency, and job creation. We have a sophisticated software team building our 3 future AI-powered platforms: Stellar Brain, Stellar Smart Cockpit, and Stellar Autodrive. To do this, we are working with the world's leading innovators, Amazon, Qualcomm, and Foxconn. And we have strengthened our focus on our circular economy activities. Our new dedicated business unit will meet our ethical responsibilities and bring additional financial values to the company, with more than 2 billion euros in revenues expected by the end of this decade. We are now designing for the circular economy to extend the life of a vehicle for as long as possible and to use more recycled materials in our products. It's the most sustainable path for our company and for the scarce resources of our planet. Our daring long-term strategic plan is just the plan to bring the drive, focus, and optimism needed for all of us. Because above it all, we have an ambition that unites our people around a noble goal in the service of future generations. Stellantis commits to achieve carbon net zero by 2038, a date before our competitors. As you all know, climate change is not only a threat for the planet, but also represents a mounting business risk. Boosting our resilience against climate-related impacts should be one of our biggest concerns. The nature of what might come, as well as its frequency and magnitude, could upend global business. We are taking a proactive role in decarbonization through an industry-leading strategy that sets our deep emission cuts to slash our CO2 emissions by half in 2030 against 2021 metrics. Our push to net zero addresses all sources of greenhouse gas emissions, from vehicles to supply chain and industrial sites. It's a bold, ethical commitment, one that focuses on long-term beneficial outcomes for all of our stakeholders. It is motivating our employees and appealing to investors and customers. As I hope you could see throughout this presentation, running a global company in this adverse, ever-changing scenario requires a long list of competencies, energy, and commitment. Obviously, financial and strategic acumen are important. Communication skills, sure, to give sense to the bold decisions that are required against the easy status quo position. But what really makes the difference is the tough work of our people. It's this work that is not often in the spotlight, the enthusiasm and the energy that all Stellantis employees share every day to offer innovative, clean, safe, and affordable mobility inspires me. Their commitment and their focus on delivering performance is exemplary. This is what makes me proud of my teammates across the entire company and why it is an immense privilege to lead Stellantis. As I wrap up, I want to note that automobiles remain just as relevant as ever, Because freedom of mobility is everyone's right. President Biden and I discussed it at the North American Auto Show some weeks ago as they prepare the infrastructural needs for the electrification push in the US. And with President Macron yesterday, where we expressed our common view in the need for stakeholders to speed up for a better sustainable future. At Stellantis, we are committed to promoting sustainable and affordable mobility for all. The freedom of movement is a crucial element of modern democracies, especially here in Europe. To be real, freedom of mobility must be protected and then built together with strong collaboration between all the players. One can't just legislate and walk away. We need to team up and act collaboratively. This is why Stellantis will organize, starting next year, the Freedom of Mobility Forum. We have the humility to believe in the strength of collective intelligence and in a 360-degree approach to this societal issue. The forum will be the place for an open debate where our stakeholders will confront ideas and hopefully converge on some points. Contributors from business, policy, science, industry, and civil society will share ideas on the future of sustainable mobility, starting from undisputed facts and far from dogmatism. And Stellantis will take its share as we lead the way the world moves. I hope that you will join, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Please join me for a few questions. Very interesting. In one of your slides, you showed the world of Stellantis, where you're big, the US, Europe, and there is one part of the camembert, as we say in French, the slice, chart, which is pretty small. It's China. On the long term, if you project yourself in the next 20 years, can a player like you still be relevant, still be a world player without being big in what is actually already the biggest car market in the world?
I think we can answer that very fair question by saying that today, Stellantis is the #3 car maker in the world by revenues, #3. And as you know well, our presence in China is totally marginal. Not only we are the #3 by net revenues, but we are also at the 3rd rank of the most profitable car makers in the world. So without being significantly present in China, we have the capability to fund for our future at a high level of profitability, being the 3rd car maker in the world. So the answer is yes, we can of course be sustainable without the Chinese market, but we will continue to operate in China. But we just presented in our Therefore 2030 plan that it will be an asset-light strategy. Why is it an asset-light strategy? Because we are fearful of the growing geopolitical risks around China, between China and the rest of the world, and we don't want to be caught in the middle of any cross-sanctions that eventually may happen if something bad happens on those geopolitics. So we want to protect our company. We don't want the company to be vulnerable to any potential cross-sanctions between China and the rest of the world, and we see that there is a more and more muscular dialogue, if I may say, between China and the rest of the world. It is quite visible for all of us. So we don't want our company to be caught in the middle. It's a vulnerability that we don't need. And as I said, being the 3rd car maker in the world with the 3rd most profitable AOI margin, I think we can absolutely answer yes to your question.
As you mentioned, you met Joe Biden in Detroit a few weeks ago. In the US, they have taken the decision to protect or promote local manufacturing by establishing some kind of beneficiary bonus for the cars produced and assembled in the US. Do you think that Europe should do the same and protect more those who actually build and invest in Europe?
I think that we should look for reciprocity. It's not a matter of aggression, it's just a matter of reciprocity, and namely, I think we should have in Europe, when we compete with the Chinese brands, as an example, we should have in Europe the same conditions as the ones we benefit from when we are in China competing with Chinese brands. We should not offer our Chinese competitors in Europe better conditions to compete with us than the ones we benefit from when we are competing with them on their own market. So yes, reciprocity in a world that unfortunately is more and more fragmented, I think is going to be the name of the game. If there is no reciprocity, then there will be losers by construction of the regulations, which I don't think is what we should be doing in Europe, at least. But that's the way the world is going more fragmented. There are more geopolitical tensions. We are creating bubbles, one bubble in North America, another bubble in Europe, a third bubble in China. And operating inside the bubble will have consequences for the consumer because prices will be higher. And of course, if we want to compete in a fair way, the conditions inside of that bubble need to be the same as the ones we benefit from on another bubble in another part of the world.
You mentioned prices, and you mentioned during your speech the importance of the freedom of movement. This is what the cars brought to the people, freedom in a sense. Are you worried that in today's environment, the prices of cars will go up and that cars will become some kind of luxury item that only some people will be able to afford?
I believe that risk exists. As we all know, the regulations have imposed a specific technology that is 40 to 50% more expensive than the conventional technology, which carries the risk that we would prevent the middle classes of our markets to access to new cars. I think that would be a mistake from a pure democracy perspective, because middle class needs to be able to protect its own freedom of mobility by being able to buy a new car. And therefore, I think we need to be careful not to put an excess of content and technology in a product that makes it so expensive that to protect the sustainability of your company, you need to sell it at a high price, and therefore preventing the middle classes from accessing to those products. So what we are doing now is we are accelerating the productivity and all the cost reduction efforts to make sure that by 2026, we'll be able to have for the EV cars the same price as the one we have for ICE cars. That's the plan, and let's see if we can execute properly.
Price parity in a sense in 3 years from now. 3 years, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, you have to go fast. Huh? This industry, you have to go fast. It's a Darwinian period.
The choice has been made in Europe that by 2035 it wouldn't be impossible to buy new cars with a diesel or a gas engine. Does it mean, do you think, that roads will be 100% electric 5 years or 10 years after that? Or do you think that there will be a need still for old cars, second-hand cars that people will still keep because the 100% solution of electric is not viable for a big continent like Europe? We will need another technology.
That's the big risk. The big risk is that if we were not able to make EV cars affordable very quickly, the consequence of that is that middle classes will keep their old cars. As you know, if I take the example of Europe, the average age of the current car park is 12 years. So if we cannot let middle class people buy new EVs, they will keep their old cars. So in 3 years, they will be at 15 years of average age. And if you compare a car that has 15 years to the cars of today, you see that there is 50% more emissions. So the less affordable the EVs are, the more you are going to postpone the moment at which they will shift from old ICEs to BEVs, which is going to impact the planet in a negative way. Which means if we want to protect the planet and fix the global warming, we need to make EVs affordable, or to allow, by regulation, the middle classes to buy electrified products that may not be totally BEVs, but represent a 50% CO2 emission reduction, which of course, at a high volume of sales, will impact the planet in a positive way. So we have to be very pragmatic. We cannot just stay on the dogmatic decision to go full speed on BEVs if they are not affordable, because that would impact the planet. So how to bring a layer of pragmatism on top of this dogmatic decision, I think, is a challenge for the political leaders within the next 1 or 2 years.
Do you think that the US is maybe a little bit more pragmatic, will have more diversity on its road than Europe? Does it make sense?
It makes sense, but I think that they are going to face the same problem. And by the way, we cannot talk about the US
there is
as one single market.
California and the rest.
You have the CARB states like California, and you have the rest of the country. So we would say, to oversimplify, that CARB states look like Europe, and the rest of the market is a little bit different. But I think we are going to face the same problem in the US, which is how to make EV cars affordable for the middle classes. That's the #1 challenge that we have ahead, because if we don't make them affordable, people will keep their old ICEs. And if at one point in time we prevent them from using their cars, we impact their freedom of mobility, and then they will revolt. And that will create social instability, and we don't need that.
We don't want that. In the list of headaches for CEOs recently has been adding new items like a semiconductor crisis and shortage, inflation, which is coming back, labor shortage. When you see all those risks, do you see them as a temporary risk and headaches that will be solved in the near future? Or do you think that those 3 pain points are here to last for a few years, maybe?
That's a great point. As I'm becoming a veteran of this industry, I still remember that 20 years ago or 25 years ago,
we had inflation?
No, we would have a crisis. Then for 3 to 5 years, things would be reasonably calm and predictable. Then another crisis. Then 3 to 5 years of normal things. Right now, the crisis follows the crisis and it doesn't stop. So the good thing is that we have a high level of training to manage crisis. That's the good thing. I think that moving forward, inflation will have to go down because interest rates are now taking care of it, but it will be at the cost of some slowdown in the economy, eventually at the cost of some unemployment increase. That's going to be the way the central banks are going to deal with it. So I think inflation will be under control within 1 or 2 years, I think. Semiconductors are now getting better in terms of supply, but still not at the pre-COVID level. But the market is not at the pre-COVID level either. So my guesstimation is that by the end of 2023, the semiconductor supply will be fixed. So that's going to vanish. And all the other factors, I think what we need now is clarity and stability. We need clarity on the regulations. As you know, Euro 7 has been under discussions for many years now. It has been postponed by 1 year.
Do you think it will happen, or do you think some car manufacturers will just give up?
I don't know. Anyway, our opinion is to say we don't need it. It is going to be counterproductive to divert a certain number of scarce resources that we should be using to accelerate electrification instead of creating one more activity for ICEs, which anyway are going to be banned from the European market. So why do we use and waste those resources instead of accelerating and speeding up the electrification? So we think that Euro 7 is counterproductive. By the way, it's very late and doesn't make a lot of sense. And even from a physics perspective, can be questionable. So that's our position. So I think that things will naturally get better, bar the fact that there will be other crises that I cannot predict today, but most probably statistically will happen.
Okay, last question. You have the choice between 14 brands. So what is the car you're driving next weekend?
Right now I'm driving a DS, a DS automobile, a DS7.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carlos.
You're
and
welcome.
see you in 2 years from now. Thank you.